With FLOG 2, Fujifilm gives us a dynamic range that we've only seen on full frame and cinema cameras before, but as always, shooting log can be a bit confusing at first, especially because the zebras on Fujifilm cameras are really not that great. So here's a tutorial on how to expose and color grade FLOG 2. Again.
Shit. Hold on, I gotta climb on it. That camera is way heavier.
Oh, careful. Yeah.
That was good, that was good, that was good. That is a great shot, huh?
That was a nice ride. Oh. Nearly fell in the water. The first important thing to expose FLOG 2 correctly is to turn the view assist functionality on in your camera, because then you see how it will look like later. But the problem is that the small display always makes the image look a bit darker as it actually is. And also the histogram shows that the shadows are crushed when they are actually not really crushed. And that's why when I got this camera, I initially overexposed a lot, which is completely unnecessary, as I figured out over time. You can actually just expose so that it looks good on the display. And this is actually what I did all the time on my recent Komodo trip, etc. Just exposing normally so it looks good on the display, even if you think that it might be underexposed, because it might be a bit too dark on the display, or your histogram shows that the shadows are crushed, which they are not. And by the way, with normal exposure, I don't mean 0, like the EV indicator. I just mean that it looks good on the screen, because the EV indicator, that number, you can completely ignore it. Sometimes it's -2, sometimes it's +2, but even then it looks good, so that number doesn't really say much. From the distance I thought that here's water on the table, but it's actually not, it's a hole. Want to know how the dogs react to the drone? What's up? You're hungry or what?
I'm very hungry. Ready for breakfast.
Yeah?
This guy rides super fast on his motorbike.
Yeah,
I get there alive.
I'm riding fast, that's true. That was a nice morning, didn't even crash my Avada. That always makes me happy, at least when I got some nice shots. And by the way, the friend that you saw in the footage was CJ. He wants to become a colorist and is also starting on Instagram and YouTube right now. I will just leave his Instagram handle in the description below. He's a cool guy, so help him a little bit in the beginning by subscribing. But let's come back to topic, X-H2S FLOG 2 exposure. Outside, I have one more important tip, and that is that you should use an ND filter, or even better, a variable ND filter, because the base ISO of FLOG 2 is 1250, and that makes it quite hard to expose oftentimes. Now, the variable ND filter that I use all the time over the past year or so is the 1 to 5 stop true color variable ND filter from Nisi, which is nice because it doesn't change the color of your shot, so you can just set the white balance in camera and it all works directly, don't need to compensate. But 5 stops is really not enough for that filter. I actually had to raise my shutter speed or the aperture quite often, so I would not necessarily recommend this filter for this particular camera, even if the filter itself is good. But Nisi just sent me this new Swift variable ND filter mist kit, so they essentially you get the same filter, 1 to 5 stop, plus a 4 stop ND filter and another mist filter, so you can get all the VND and some other effects with that. That's cool. I did not review this kit yet, but I will do that within the next 2 or 3 weeks. Then you will find a video about it on my channel. But this is likely the kit that I will recommend, because it's the same filter essentially, plus a 4 stop ND filter, so nothing that should change the color if they do it good. So that's why I assume that this will be a good kit. And yeah, just if you're looking into that Nisi kit, just get that one here. Then you have this 9 stops of ND. That definitely helps with exposure on the FLOG 2 color profile on the X-H2S. But let's also talk about how to expose FLOG 2 in darker environments like right now, because that's the same as with any other camera system. The darker it gets, the higher you should expose, because otherwise you would get too much noise in the shadows. And in that example here, I only use window light right now, and my face is a bit overexposed. I overexposed by +1 stop now. Number is not really important, it's just important that the overall image is a bit brighter without looking bad. Like, I don't want to expose so far that my skin would clip. Like, for example, if I would do it somewhat like that, yeah, now I expose via shutter, which is not good. But as you can see, now my skin looks bad. I would not expose like that. So let's bring it back. Shutter 48. Then my skin looks still too bright now to me, but so that it still looks good enough that I can bring it back in post and it looks good. And yeah, that's what we're coming to next, how to color grade FLOG 2. Obviously, it takes a little bit more work in dark environments because now I have to bring the exposure down. But if you exposed correctly, like normal outside, so it looks good on your screen, it's actually quite easy. So let's go on the computer and I will show you. Okay, the color grading process is actually the same as on S-Log 3, for example, on Sony cameras, just that you use the Fuji LUTs, of course, the Fuji conversion LUTs from the Fuji website and not from the Sony website. And if you exposed your shot to look good on the screen, as shown before, all you have to do is to apply one of the conversion LUTs from the Fujifilm website and it already looks quite good. I usually use the Eternal LUT for that, and I additionally add a bit of contrast and saturation before the LUT gets applied to make it look less flat looking, because Eternal is actually a pretty flat color profile, as you can see here, and that also hides more noise in the shadows in case you have a dark background or generally some dark parts that still look a bit too noisy. If you overexposed because it was too dark or so, or you underexposed accidentally or just slightly off it as it usually is and it needs some adjustments, you can also adjust the exposure before the LUT gets applied. For that you can just use the color wheels or the HDR tools in DaVinci Resolve to make the overall shot a little bit darker or brighter, and that is best to do also before the LUT gets applied, so at the step where I do my contrast and saturation adjustments. After that you can also apply a finishing LUT, or you can do more custom color grades to give it a final look, but that's really up to you. That's a creative decision that has nothing to do anymore with FLOG 2. But let's be honest, if you use a Fujifilm camera, what you really want is that film look, right? And there's an even better tool to achieve that than using the Eternal LUT or any other LUT, and that is FilmConvert, which is also a sponsor of today's video. Great about FilmConvert is that it works with many different cameras, and it's available for Final Cut Pro, DaVinci Resolve and Adobe Premiere, so for all major video editing apps. Using it is super easy. I just apply it to my footage, as you can see, and then I select Fujifilm X-H2S and FLOG 2 to tell the plugin what camera and picture profile I've used, and it automatically gives it this nice film look, in that case from Kodak. Of course, if I shot on another camera such as DJI Mavic 3, I select that instead of Fujifilm FLOG 2, and that's actually a good functionality because that helps a lot to match the footage of different cameras, so they all have the same look without much effort from your side. Of course, it needs a little bit of tweaking, but for that you have some other tools, and that's also what I wanted to show you here. You can do some more adjustments. For example, you can turn the film grain down if you don't want it, and you can also make quick adjustments to exposure, saturation, temperature and tint. Like, these are the tools that I use most of the time here to adjust my look. And you can also change the film stock that you want to emulate. For example, the standard film stock is the Kodak 5207 with 3, and it usually does a good job, but you also get various Fujifilm stocks and others. My favorites are definitely the standard one from Kodak and also the Kodak P400 Portra. When you scroll down, it actually looks really good. And after using these tools, the image usually looks good already, but if not, you can make further adjustments via the on-screen controls, such as the film response curve. This is also a tool that I use a lot. That's good for contrast adjustments, for example, and also the color wheels and the grain curve to adjust the look of the film grain even further if you like that. I'm personally not a fan of that, but there are lots of people that like that, so change that there. There are a few more adjustments, but I usually just leave them as they are because they don't do that much, at least for my use case. And I actually use FilmConvert quite a lot since the X-H2S camera pack came out, so it comes very recommended. And if you want to see a video that I've completely color graded with FilmConvert and shot on the X-H2S and Mavic 3, check out this video here in the corner from my recent trip to Komodo Island. I think you will really like how that came out. And if you want to see more videos and tutorials of the X-H2S and other Fujifilm cameras in the future, don't forget to subscribe, and I hope to see you there.